Hello everyone, I'm Oliver and usually known as FAIRFILTER on Instagram, and many of you guys asked me how I edit my pictures the way they are. So and then I thought it would be nice to make a video about this and show you my workflow within Lightroom. For example, you see here one of my pictures. It's not exactly the same pictures I have in Instagram, but it's a picture of the same series on that day that I took. And right now we recreate the look you see here on the right side. The left side you see the original picture. And I will go through all the settings with you guys and explain what I did. So first let me excuse the Lightroom language. I'm from Germany, so therefore all my language here is German, but I will explain this and translate this in English so you guys know what I do. So at first we set this picture back to the original values, so therefore I go down here and press reset like this, and you see here the original picture. I shot it in portrait mode, and the first step I do is I check my overall settings on the picture. And you see here I shot this picture in a RAW format. I encourage you to do the same. You have not that much of a struggle if you shoot in RAW. You can change the exposure and stuff like that afterwards without hustling with some quality issues. So always shoot your pictures in RAW format. Later you can export the pictures in JPEG or PNG or what you like. So first thing I see is the original picture has already a kind of a temperature here. You see here, temperature of 5008, and when I look at the picture, that's a little bit too greenish for my taste. I want to have this picture in the way of a cold day, in the way of a dark, cold day, dark, cold mood. So therefore I give the temperature a little bit more of a bluish look. So I change my temperature settings to 5000, and you see here already the difference. You see the river and the trees get a little bit more of a bluish look, a little bit more cold. So the next step is I pre-select the area I want to have, so I crop the picture. So therefore I go to my cropping tool, and there's a trend on Instagram right now, and the trend is a portrait mode 4 to 5. You see it like this, and you see here the portrait mode. And now you look for the area you like. Let's take the middle area, I don't know, like this. Switch back to before and after. Now we have our format for Instagram. So next step I used to take is the exposure. That's this slider here. And usually I take my pictures a little bit overexposed. Like you see here, you see the brightness of the trees and stuff like that. I do this because of the details in the darker areas. I want to have all the details. If you see here, if you look here around this area in the black part of the picture, I still have some waves that I can see here because I used a little bit overexposure. That's no problem within the RAW format, because you can change the exposure afterwards. What we do right now, so I get the exposure and I decrease it down to, let's see, maybe minus 0.9. I don't know what to call this, minus 0.9, yeah. At the same time, we increase the contrast a little bit, so we get a little bit more of a blackness within the shadows and some more details. And the next sliders I will bypass. We will come to them later, but we go all the way down here to the tone curve, and that's a very important part. And here I have a kind of a preset for myself. I can load the preset and I will explain to you what I did there. So I go down here, FAIRFILTER preset, and what you saw, let's go back to this again, look at the picture, and I load the preset and just look at the picture, and you see here we get a little bit of a washed out look. So all my blacks are gray now, and it's a little bit more washed out. That's kind of a nice style, so you get a mood into a picture. And what I did here is, you see here in the tone curve, you see in the back, that's my tone area of the picture. It's going all the way down, up there, and then all the way down again. And what I did here is I increased the tone curve on the lower end. You see here, if I go back down, the blacks come up really sharp, but I don't want that. I want the blacks to be more washed out, so I get also a color in the blacks later. The middle tones I want to left untouched, so therefore I go back, I take another point here, another control point, and I go back to the normal line. On the midtones I want to have it a little bit increased. That's for the details. For example, I push this up, you see we get a lot more details. I push it down, we get a lot more, I don't know, a lot more bullshit. So what I did here, I just don't want to be normal here, I just want to have a little bit more details, like this, to get the details. On the upper tones, you see here we have still a little bit of area of the picture in here on this line, on this vertical line. So here I want to go back to normal, and that's the upper midtones. And on the upper tones, on the high tones, I just cut the tips of the high tones. So that doesn't affect this picture at all. You see here, if I change this, nothing happens because we have no tone area in this picture. But that's quite interesting in pictures with sky or with some clouds and stuff like that. You can tip the higher tones a little bit. You can cut the higher tones a little bit. So yeah, that's what I did here. It doesn't affect this picture right now. So when we have the tone curve, the most important part of the picture, we go back up and we go to the lights. And if I look at the picture, you see the white areas on the trees are a little bit too bright for me. So I take this slider and I go down. If I do it quite fast, you see what happens. The white areas of my trees, this slider affects the white areas of my trees. So the trees are a little bit too white for me, so I go down with the lights. Then the next step is the depth. Yeah, you see here that this areas here, like here. If I change the depth, you see I get more details or less details. But I want a more of a moody look on this picture, so I go down with the details, with the depth a little bit more. The next step are the whites. The white areas in the picture, I can go more white, like this, or I can go into a gray, like you don't see it that much, but you can change the whiteness of the picture to a grayness. And I go a little bit down here. On pictures with sky or clouds, I don't encourage you to change the whites that much, because you will change the color of the clouds from a white to a gray, and that's not always the best way. So the next slider is the blacks. I want to go down with the black a little bit to get a bit more of a darker area. And now to the next step. There's the clarity, dynamic and saturation. That's an important part in my workflow. First of all, I want to increase the clarity on the picture. If I do it all the way, you will see what happens. we get a little bit more contrast and clarity. You see here the sharpness of the picture increases dramatically. So I want to have this sharpness, so I go all the way up to maybe 57, and on the same way I go down with the dynamic. The thing what happens if I go down with the dynamic is I lose some colors here. So let's see, we go down here and you see it gets more unsaturated. And what I do here is I go down with the dynamic a little bit too much and increase my saturation again to get that color difference between the trees and the river. So here we have now almost no color, but also at the same time we have some color within the picture, and that's the way I like it. So we can go back here later for some fine adjustment, but I think the picture is a little bit too exposed, so I go a little bit more down here to -1. Now I scroll down to the HSL, and you see here the HSL is color settings, so I can change the color tone, I can change the saturation and luminance of the colors, of all different colors. What I want to do here is I want to have my greens a little bit more dark, so I go down to the luminance, I go to the slider for the greens, and I slide a little bit down. If I do this all the way, you see what happens, you see? And if I do this a little bit, let's go down a little bit to get more dark areas here. Also, to compensate this, I will increase the clarity a little bit to get more of the high tips here on the trees. The next thing I want to do is I go all the way down to the camera calibration. That's some kind of a preset for your cam. And here, what I will do here is I will change my blue tones in my camera a little bit more to a teal tone. If I do this all the way, you see what happens. My trees go all the way down to orange, and the river will go all the way up to teal. But I don't want to do this that hard. I just want to go down a little bit so my trees get a little bit of a dynamic within the different branches. So we get some orange branches and some green areas. It's not all green then, it's a little bit more natural. So I go down here. Okay, the next thing I want to do is I want to... the picture has two sharp edges, so I use the vignette to lower the saturation on the edges of the picture. Let's see, let's go down a little bit, maybe -25, see here. And what bothers me right now is this tree. If you look at this tree, it's much too bright, it's almost white, so I want to fit this tree a little bit more within the other trees. So therefore I go to my masking tool, it's up here. I use a circular mask, and I will select this area like this. And you see the bluish color. I just have the bluish color here presetted, so I see what I'm masking. I go on the temperature, I go back to 0. And then what I do here is I just decrease the exposure a little bit to fit the other trees. Maybe I go a little bit more greenish, like this, and toning. Click finish, and you see here, it's not like, it's no more popping out like crap. So the next thing is the river itself is a little bit too gray for me, so I use my masking tool again. I select the middle of the river, and I select ellipse like this. It's a little bit too bluish because of my preset here again, but now I will adjust it a little bit like this, a little bit more to the left. And I just use the temperature slider to get the color I want. If we go back to 0, it's like this. I want a little bit more blue, so I go to -16. I increase the size a little bit. There we are. Well, looks good, but we are not ready yet. So we go back down again to the, let's see, where is it? Where is it? Here, the effects panel again. There we have some noise. So if you zoom into the picture, you see here it's kind of a little bit of washed out. If you look at this, so it's kind of a quality issue. In the darker areas especially, you have no details in the darker areas, and that's a little bit of, that bothers me a little bit. So I add a little bit of a grain or a noise to prevent that. If I add a noise, you see here, you see this noise in here? If I go back to 0, you see the difference? 0, no details. I go back in, put in 10. You have some details. The details is only noise or grain, but that's no problem. The overall picture is a little bit better looking for the eye. So one more thing I want to do is I go back to my masking tool on the river, and I want to increase the clarity on the river a little bit. Oh, also I will go to 0 in the exposure. But I want to increase the clarity to get that waves a little bit more. See here, if I increase that, get a little bit more of those waves. Also the contrast a little bit higher. Maybe the exposure a little bit down, like this. And there we are. One more thing, you see here at the upper edge of the picture, there's a little bit of a sharp edge, a sharp ending. I don't want that, so I go back to my masking tool, and this time I don't use the circular masking, I use a block masking, and I go back here and I get here some kind of area like this. Also my tone color. My temperature is again on -36, so I go back to 0. Like this. My exposure I set back to 0. Well, no, I don't set it back to 0. I go down a little bit more to get that black edge up there. I increase the area a little bit, like this. Go a little bit more down to get the kind of ending on the picture up there. On the lower end of the picture is all is fine, but up there it's a little bit too sharp. It was a little bit too sharp. So let's hit ready, and I think that's it. Now we are on the end of this picture. And if you see here, before and after, you get a lot of details and a lot of moods and some soul into a picture with this stuff. So I hope you liked that little workflow tutorial of mine, and I hope it helps a little bit with your pictures. And yeah, take care and use these tips, and maybe we see each other in the next video. So take care.